The joke in appraising is the best house you can appraise has been owned by a retired lieutenant colonel.
Welcome to episode 9 of Keeping It Real. I'm your host, Adam Tabaka. Today we'll explore the world of residential appraisals with Mickey Campagna. A native of Alexandria, Mickey studied at both UVA and American University. He's a certified general real estate appraiser with 53 years of experience, serving clients from the Blue Ridge to the Potomac. Mickey is a master at appraising residential, multifamily, commercial, and industrial properties, as well as vacant land and condemnations, and is a highly respected expert witness. Mickey comes from a long line of spiritual overachievers, is currently on his third trophy wife, has 2 great children and 5 amazing grandchildren. A sailboat racer for 2.5 decades, Mickey has delivered boats from Jamaica to Maine, fly fished the Yellowstone and Rapidan rivers, hiked a portion of the Appalachian Trail, and amazingly enough, he's never been sued, at least not yet. It's my honor to introduce the one and the only Mickey Campagna. Mickey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate that. Who wrote that? That was a pretty good introduction. You did hit all the high points, I must say. Excellent. No, it's all true. At least it is. It's the benefit of being all true. Yep.
So thanks for being here. And before we dig into the nitty gritty of appraisals, give us a little background on how you got started in the line of work that you're in right now with appraising property.
Well, I had a very I worked for the post office, the U.S. Post Office, when I first got married. And it was a good job. I was in Alexandria. I carried mail all over Alexandria. But my mother, God bless her, thought I was destined for bigger things. And she got me a job with a real estate company in Alexandria called Jacob and Warwick. And this was in 1967. And they were located at the corner of Prince and Pitt Street. And it was a very small firm, only 5 or 6 people. And I was the junior property manager. I was the guy with the plunger. And so I learned an incredible amount about real estate being a property manager. I mean, it just was, we had 200 houses and about 1,500 apartment units. And that was the bottom. You really learned about real estate from the bottom. And 3 years later, Mr. Jacob died and I needed to find another job. And I went to Scott Humphrey, who at the time was running R.L. Kane Incorporated, which is still a company on South Washington Street. And he needed a junior assistant appraiser because he had just gotten the contract from the city of Alexandria to appraise the DIP Urban Renewal Project, which was the last urban renewal project in the United States where they bulldozed all of the houses. And it was basically the neighborhood in Alexandria, west of Washington Street, over to Route 1, south of Duke to Franklin. And basically the city leveled all of the houses in that neighborhood, which was, in retrospect, was a complete and utter disaster because it was already being fixed up at the time. Anyway, so he needed somebody. It was 183 properties, and he needed somebody to go out and hold the stupid end of the tape for him. So that was me. And again, I learned how to go to the courthouse and read deeds. I learned how to talk to people, let me into their house. It was an amazing education. It really, really was. And I got to testify in some of the trials. The city condemned these houses and people objected, and I got to testify, I got qualified as an expert witness. It was a wonderful experience. And in addition to that, Scott did a lot of mortgage work for Northern Virginia Savings and Loan and First Commonwealth Savings and Loan, both local lenders. And I got, from Bellhaven to Gunston Manor to Fairfax, just a huge amount of experience working for him. One of the projects we did was he was an expert witness. We worked on the widening of Route 7 from Leesburg to Winchester. We appraised all of the properties on both sides of the road, from Leesburg to Winchester, which was a huge job. So anyway, I worked for him for 8 years, and then I followed the typical appraiser career path. I took a couple of his clients and went out on my own. And I've been pretty much on my own ever since. I did a stint with a company called Metropolitan Appraisal Group back in, this was the late 80s, when the first mortgage boom was happening. And my own personal record is looking at 8 houses in one day. So the last house, we're shining bright headlights on the house so we could take the pictures. It was unbelievable time. Money was just fantastic. But I got tired of doing that. Plus I had other things I was doing. So I went back into business for myself and had another stint working for an MAI in Maryland. And that was good. He sent me all over the country doing appraisals. I was doing shopping centers in Florida and motels in Mobile, Alabama, and office building on Staten Island. That was another incredible experience working for that company. But again, the urge to be your own boss is so strong. I went back to work for myself, and I've been doing that ever since. So that's the short version of how I got where I am now. And I like to say appraising is the only thing I can do legally to support my lifestyle. I can't ever retire.
I won't ask you any other questions about that. So to kick things off, can you help us understand how price and value may not always be the same thing here?
What's interesting about that in real estate appraising is I use the example, people say, well, my house is worth such and such. And, somebody comes along and they offer me more money for it than this or less money. The buyer may be living in a motel with his 2 kids and his golden retriever because he's been transferred to the Washington area and he's got to find a place for his family ASAP. He'll pay anything that meets his needs. Conversely, there's a lawyer who took his secretary out to lunch, got a little bit indiscreet, and his wife is going to sell his house. So she may just dump it. So there's the relationship between value and cost is not very well connected. The definition of fair market value, the short version is a willing buyer selling to a willing purchaser. A willing seller selling to a willing purchaser. And they arrive at a cost between the two of them. That's the value.
Got it.
That makes sense? That
totally makes sense. Absolutely.
Okay. But you have one extreme. You have a guy that has to buy because he's been transferred here, and you have a guy that has to sell because his wife is divorcing him.
Yeah.
And I've seen them both. That's the way the market is. Not everybody just goes, Hortense, I think we should live in Waynewood. No, it doesn't work that way all the time. So usually there's a reason on both sides of the deal.
No, that's an excellent point. Excellent point that sometimes I think gets overlooked. So for you, when you're conducting an appraisal, appraisal is not a simple task. I can only imagine. I'm not an appraiser, but I've seen the paperwork, and I've done one of these broker price opinions before that looks kind of sort of in the same ballpark. Very, very detailed analysis that you're doing. Tell us about all the work that goes into completing a residential real estate appraisal.
Okay. All right. So I get an assignment from whomever, bank, a lawyer, homeowner, agent. First thing I do is I look up the factual data. I go to MRAS, go to the tax records. I get the lot size, I get the zoning. I get what the city or the county thinks is the size of the building. I get the legal description. I get all that, print all that out. So I have an idea of what I'm dealing with. Sometimes, I hate to confess this, but sometimes I go to Zillow if it's for sale by owner, it hasn't been listed before, and just see what it looks like, so that I can see what kind of Rambler, contemporary, whatever. So I've got that data, sort of the factual data. I make an appointment. I go look at the property. I go through the house from bottom to the top, make notes. And what I'm looking for when I'm going through the house, 2 things: the condition that the house is in, and I don't make any judgments. I just say this is, what the condition is, and the functionality of the house. And that means, what are the sizes of the closets? Are there enough electrical outlets? How old is the kitchen equipment? How old is the furnace? The joke in appraising is the best house you can appraise has been owned by a retired lieutenant colonel, because they have all the manuals. They've changed the filters. If there's ever a problem, they take care of it or have it taken care of. So I'm looking for those sorts of things. And there's a distinction that an appraiser makes between normal wear and tear If you have a house with little kids in it, you're going to have fingerprints on the wall. If you have a house with a dog, you're going to have scratch floors. And deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is when you haven't had the outside trim painted in 10 years and it's beginning to rot, and it's going to cost more money to have that fixed than it would have if you'd originally had it done at the right time. All houses need to be completely rebuilt over the life of the mortgage. If you think about it, over 30 years, you're going to have a new roof, new furnace, new kitchen, new bathroom, new toilet seats. It's going to be repainted. The floors are going to be refinished. The carpet's going to be replaced. Literally everything inside the house and outside the house is going to be replaced over a 30-year period. So the appraiser's position is, at what point in that 30-year continuum am I? And so I'm making notes about all this as I'm going through the house. The worst thing the homeowner can do is walk around with me and jabber in my ear. I'm looking at things and I'm trying to make notes. I'm trying to identify these things that I'm talking about and make notes about it. And I can't do that if somebody's telling me, well, the door used to be over here and we moved it. Hortense and I moved. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know what it used to be like. I want to know what it's like right now, this minute, because that's the data value. So if you're a homeowner, let the guy in, pat him on the back, give him the check, and then leave. Because what happens is when I go through the house, I have questions when I'm finished. I write down the questions. When was the kitchen replaced? Is that a new furnace? That's when I want the information from the homeowner, not when I'm walking through the house. After I've walked through the house, then I go on the outside because I don't want to track mud into the house. So, I walk around the back, looking at the deck, looking at the patio, looking to see if there's fencing, which is, I just make a note of it. It's not a mandatory thing. What does the lot back up to? Is it a busy street? Is it Fairfax County Parkway back there? Or is it Burke Lake Park? There's a big difference. One of the things that I'm attuned to, and I'm not a home inspector, but one of the things that I'm attuned to when I look at a house is I look at the four corners on the outside very carefully, especially if the lot slopes from the street down towards the back, because a lot of times, for whatever reason, the land washes away from the gutters. The downspouts. When the downspouts come, it washes the dirt away from the corners of the house, and that's where the house is going to sag. And that's why you have cracks in the basement. So if I see that on the outside, then I may go back inside and look and see if I move a box, I can see whether there's a crack in the foundation or a crack in the wall. So I've got that. I've got the factual data. Now I have the physical data of the house. I get in my car and I ride around and I look at the comparable sales that I pulled up before I went to look at the house. I didn't really know what I was looking for with comparable sales until I've looked at the house. So now I look at them and I go, okay, does this work or does this not work? And if they don't work, then when I go back to the office, I'll find more comparable sales. And now we have the advantage of having such great photographs and bright inside, outside, that that's a huge help to an appraiser. One thing I would like to say to agents out there, please label the pictures. Please, a bedroom picture, is it upstairs? Is it on the main floor? Is it in the basement? Please let us know where those things are. Where the bathroom, is it a hall bathroom? Is it the master bath? Whatever. That's very, very helpful. Another footnote I would say is that in many jurisdictions, the definition of a bedroom in the basement has changed. The window, it used to be that you had to have a window in the bedroom, in the basement for access. Now you have to have a window big enough for a firefighter to get in and out with an air pack on his back. That's a whole bigger window than just the normal subdivision size window. And if it isn't big enough, then it can't be called a bedroom. Now it can be called a den, an exercise room, a computer room. There's a lot of uses for finished things in the basement, but the bedroom count may be, it may not be allowable as a bedroom if it doesn't have the proper window. One other thing about bedrooms, most houses have between 3 and 4 bedrooms, detached houses on the second floor. A 5 or 6 bedroom house, which used to be popular in the 80s, is not so popular anymore. Of course, you may know more about that than I do. But families are smaller. People, don't have the need for a lot of bedrooms in the basement anymore. So, as I say, there's still uses for them, but it's not a big, huge deal. Guy, well, I got 6 bedrooms. Okay, who cares? And that brings up one final point about the bedroom. Years ago, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae began having problems with appraisals of bi-levels, contemporary, split foyer, split levels, and because of the finish in the basement and the level of the finish, walk out, completely below grade. So they promulgated a rule, very, very simple rule. If your feet are below grade anywhere, that's a basement, period, end of story. So it has to be treated differently from the upper floors. It still has value, but from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's perspective, it costs less to build basement finish. It doesn't usually have as many windows. It doesn't have a roof, doesn't have a kitchen probably. So they're saying it's if the upper floor is worth $200 a foot, the basement's worth 150, 125. So, all the time I'll send an appraisal out, and the appraisal form has the number of bedrooms and baths, and it'll say 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and they'll go, no, I've got a bedroom in the basement and a full bath. Yes, you do, but for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's purposes, it's not counted as gross living area above grade, which is their main concern. So anyway, all right, so I've gotten all this data together. I've looked at the comps. I've got the factual data. I've got the personal data about the house. I go back to the office and I fill out the form. And that's a huge, the Freddie Mac Fannie Mae residential mortgage form is, everybody that's seen it, is just a huge amount of work. But what's interesting to me is, and I see these a lot. I mean, I see a lot of appraisals, and I see them at 15, 20, 25 pages long. There's only one page in the whole thing that makes any sense to the homeowner, and that's the back page, which has the value on it. Everything else is BS, in my opinion. All of the scope of work, the fit use PAP, have I done any appraisals of this property in the last 3 years? Who gives a crap? Yeah. It's just ridiculous government BS, in my opinion. So, the important thing is, what's my house worth and how did he get to it or she get to it? What are the comps he used or she used? What's the thought process here? And I should reiterate, from an appraiser standpoint, all we give you is an opinion. It's just our opinion of value, based on as much factual data as we can assemble. The little secret in the appraisal business is a lot of the adjustments that we use. One house has got 2.5 baths, one house has 2 baths. So you have a half bath somewhere. Well, what's that worth? What's it worth to the buyer? Not how much it would cost to be put in. What's it worth to the buyer? Well, that's a swag, as we call it, a scientific wild ass guess.
It's funny.
So having let the genie out of the bottle, so I go back to the office. I put the comparables in the grid. On the left side of the grid is all the factual data about the subject property. I put the comparables into the grid, and I make adjustments as I go down. At the end, there's, the bottom line, after I made all the adjustments to the 3 comparables, those 3 values should be within a fairly narrow range, say less than 10%. If they're not, either I've got the wrong comparable sale maybe, or I've made the adjustments are wrong. So then I go back and I fine tune everything. And that's how I know that the adjustment for a bath powder room versus a full bath is $2,500. If I made an $18,000 adjustment, it would be all out of whack. So it's sort of a analytical problem where the answer to the problem has to agree to the pieces that were put into the problem. If that makes any sense, I'm not sure I'm explaining that very well. So I look at it. I look at the three numbers, and I look at the amount of adjustments. The best comp would be the house next door, which is the perfect replica of the subject property, and it's in exactly the same condition. That would mean there were no adjustments to that sale. Not going to find that very often, except in a brand new subdivision. So I look at the quantity and quality of the adjustments that I've made. And this used to be that Freddie Mac didn't like adjustments over 15%, gross adjustments over 15%. That told them that maybe that comparable wasn't as comparable as it ought to be. They've modified that through the years, and I'm actually not sure if they still even use that criteria anymore. But I think it's still useful to me. If I look at my 3 adjustments and one of them's been adjusted 5%, one's at 7 or 8, 9%, one of them is 15%, I really look at that 15%er and say, maybe there's a better sale out there. Try not to go back more than 90 days. Try not to go back more than 60 days in this market, or 30 days. But if I have to go back, in some areas, there's just not a lot of sales. So I'll go back maybe 8 or 9 months, but then I explain why I did that. And if I have to use a comp that, God forbid, a year ago, the way I make the adjustment for time is I look at the assessment. Did the assessment from 20 to 21 go up 8%? Did it go down? What did it do? And that gives me some guidance on how much the values increased. The other way, I'm sorry to talk so much here, I'm gonna stop. The other way I do that is I will take all of the sales in the subdivision. I will take, all the sales in the subdivision from January 1st, 2020 to 12/21, 12/31/20. So for the year 2020, and get an average and a median there, which we can do with Bright. And then I'll do the same thing from January 1st of this year through whatever I'm doing today. And I can see if there's been any movement, and which way the movement has been. And that helps me make a time adjustment if I need it. So, and what appraisers always want to be able to do is to point to some support for their opinion. Okay, well, why did you make this adjustment over here? There's, for instance, in the lots, in most PUDs, most subdivisions that have been built in the last 20 years, there's very little difference in the lot sizes. There's some corner lots that are bigger. There's some lots that are some bigger than others, but basically they're all the same. And so the assessor treats them all the same. So if I've got a lot at 15,000 square foot and a lot at 11,000 square foot, I will look at the assessment. If they're both assessed the same, I figure, well, if it's good enough for Fairfax County, it's good enough for me. Now, having said that, if the lot just drops off like a mountain in the back versus a flat lot, I will make an adjustment for that. I figure usability is something that buyers are looking for. Corners, busy corners. People generally don't like busy corners. And that's one of the scientific wild ass guess things, because there's no data. You can't really isolate that. What's the premium for a cul-de-sac lot versus a busy corner lot? There's so many variables. It could be the condition of the houses could be wildly different, and that would make up the so after I've assembled all that, filled out the form, I print it out, go over it again, spell check it, make sure that I've got the pictures in, and I get the map and everything. And then I do one final proof, and I hit the little button and send it off to whomever it goes to. And I'm always anxious for feedback. Most people never get past the value, and that's the end of it. But if people have questions, I'm genuinely, interested in what the questions are, and if I can help them, I really want to do that. So that's. I hope I covered it.
I think no, that's a great overview. I mean, it's an involved process. I mean, there's a lot of work that you're being asked to do in an appraisal, and so I mean, I think it's worth kind of covering what that looks like. You talked about when you were discussing this, talked about going into the home and taking a look and walking around. There are appraisals that are done, in person. There are some that are done via drive-by or desktop. When a homeowner is, when they've got an appraisal that's being ordered by their lender, and as a condition of financing for their buyer. Is there any way for the buyer or the seller to know in advance what method is being used by the appraiser, or is that simply at the discretion of the appraiser, how they're going to conduct the full appraisal?
It's usually at the discretion of the lender. Drive-bys are not as popular as they used to be back with the original crash in 2010, just because of the volume of work. Now, most lenders want to have a physical inspection of the property. Now, having said that, most lenders would rather not have an appraisal at all. Most lenders would like to just hit a button and go to Zillow, and
Yep.
that's it. Because the appraiser is the only independent person in the entire transaction, except for the termite inspector. Think about that. I'm the only guy in the entire transaction, not the agent, not the lender, not the home inspector even. Potentially the home inspector is independent, but me and the termite guy have to call it like we see it, or we get sanctioned and lose our licenses. Everybody else has a financial interest in the deal. So it's the lender that calls the tune, and we're the impediment. The appraisers are the impediment to the transaction. We're the ones that take the longest. So if they could get rid of us, and they're trying very hard, they've been working on it for years. The American Bankers Association, and the lender community in general, they're using hybrid appraisals, which are some fellow in India is looking at his computer and he's looking at MRES, and he can do it right there in wherever the heck India is, some town in India. And they'll hire an appraiser to go and physically take pictures of the outside of the house, and that's it.
Wow.
So think about that. And people, and I spoke with you a little earlier about this big article in the Wall Street Journal about how low appraisals are killing a lot of deals. Because I'm having trouble, getting up to people who are ratcheting up the value with no home inspection, no appraisal contingency, no financing contingency. They just pay whatever the market is. And that's fine. I mean, it's your money. You can do what you want with it. But we have to look backwards. Real estate agents always look forward. Real estate appraisers have to look backwards. We have to look at what has already happened in the market. That's what tells us what the market is today. Big handicap.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to say is it's not really the lender's money that's at risk if the homeowner goes bad. It's tax money that's at risk, because Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae bought the loan, or guaranteed the loan, or FHA guaranteed the loan, or VA guaranteed the loan. So when people bitch about, well, the appraisal came in low, we're saving you money, Jack. We're not inflating the value so that 3 months from now, if you lose your job and you don't have quite enough money to make that monthly payment and you lose the house, I'm going to pay for it. Adam's going to pay for it. So, we're the fiduciaries here, but we're the ones that always get dumped on, not being the victim. But if the lenders could get rid of the appraisers, they would in a heartbeat. They would just, they could do, Quicken could make loans overnight. They could make loans while you're sitting at your computer. They make car loans that way. Have you bought a car lately? How long did it take to get your loan? 30 seconds? Yeah. Unbelievable.
Go back to the early 2000s.
Yeah, right. You have a mirror, you can get a loan. If you have a breath. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that, but good. Yeah. And so the point is, what your question was, the homeowner doesn't have any choice over what form or what format the appraisal is in. That's up to the lender. They order it. They say, we want this. One thing I would say is, if you're the homeowner, you get a call from the appraiser setting up the appointment, talk to the appraiser about what their qualifications are to do the appraisal in that neighborhood. How many houses have you done recently in 22301 or 22152? Just get a sense of that. Because if you don't like the answer, you call the lender and say, I don't want this. You call your agent back and say, you tell the other side, this guy doesn't seem to be, or woman doesn't seem to be qualified to do this appraisal. And they'll call the lender and say, you better send somebody else. No skin off the lender's butt. They'll just hit the button and send somebody else out there. But that's very important. That's very important. I've run into places where people didn't know the difference between Holland Hall and Holland Hills. Big difference. Or, I've had that problem. I have to go out and look at subdivisions once in a while, new subdivisions where I've never been in before, in Bristow, Braemar, some sections of Braemar. And I got to ride around and familiarize. Where's the elementary school? Where's how far is it to a Starbucks? I want to know that stuff. But, and I'll shut up here in a minute. But the way appraisers get on the lender's approved list is they self-identify the counties that they can work in. So you have appraisers that are in Southern Maryland who check Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Prince William County, because that's where the business is up here. There's nothing happening in Chuck County, or Prince Frederick. It's all happening up here. And I think it's very important to have local knowledge, some local knowledge. I go to Clark County. I haven't done much in Clark County, but I know where it is. And I know some things about it, and I ride around, I familiarize myself with it. But a guy that's got to do 4 appraisals a day to make a living, he doesn't have the luxury of that time. He can't do that. He has to just go out, look at the house, take the shots, and boom, he's going back to wherever he is. Glen Allen, Virginia. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But funny story if you got a minute. So I was doing some work for Novak, the electrical co-op, and they are buying sites near data centers in Northern Virginia to put in substations so they can bring the power to the data center. And Chuck Kuhn, JK Moving, is a huge buyer of land, and he's bought millions and millions of dollars of land for data centers. And I was doing a property in just west of Aldi on Route 50 that he had bought, a farm that he had bought, and Novak wanted to buy a few acres of it. And he has a broker, I won't name the guy who handles his stuff. And so he was qualifying me, and he saw my email address, and he said, Amosville, Virginia. How in the world did you know anything about property at Aldi from Amosville, Virginia? I hung up on the guy before I said anything. And, I could see his point. He didn't know where Amosville was. Amosville's out near Warren.
Sure.
In Culpeper. And actually, I don't live in Amosville. That's just where the postal address is. But I've been doing property up and down Route 50 since he was in elementary school. So I felt pretty comfortable doing it. And if I go to a place, or if I get a request and I'm not comfortable because I don't want to know the area, or I know the area too well, Georgetown South, I'll turn it down. I'll just say, no, I'm too busy or whatever. I'll make an excuse and I'll turn it down. But anyway, get off the track. Do we have other questions?
All good. So when homeowners want to get a sense of what their home is worth, a lot of times they'll go to, either Zillow, or maybe they'll go to their tax assessment and take a look at what those numbers are. Kind of what are your opinions of both of those, and what might be some of the issues if you try to lean too heavily on those numbers as a solid opinion of the true value of a home?
Good question. Very good questions. And actually, it's two separate things. I'll address them both quickly. Zillow has really good pictures of the house.
Yeah.
Zillow uses algorithms, and the algorithm is based on the factual data from the city and county assessor's office, plus data from MRIS, sales data. And they put it all into a formula and they spit out the number. The flaw in that is that the county data is sometimes not very reliable. For instance, if somebody has finished off an attic or finished off the basement, county doesn't know that if they didn't get a permit. That's why we go out and look at the house. It will just depend on the county data. But it is a useful thing. It gives you a peg. The assessment data, a little information about the assessment is only good on January 1st of the year. That's their date of value. So this is October. So the value of your house, the assessment of your house was as of last January 1st. What does that tell you about now? How useful is that now? Not very. The other thing to keep in mind about assessments is, let's just say you live in Fairfax County, big county. They can't do all the assessments in one day. So they divide the county up to say the eastern part, the central part, and the western part. Every year they start in a different part. So this year they may have started in the center of Fairfax County doing the assessments there. Okay, so those, and then they go to the west and then they go to the east. So the part of the county they started off first, January of 2021, may be using comparables from 2019. You see what I mean? Because it's so old. Yep. So very useful thing about the assessment, other than just generally, well, here's the number, is the relationship between the land and the building. And when an appraiser looks at that, it's more, let's move to Arlington for a second. Arlington has consistently appraised the land in an assessment higher than Alexandria or Fairfax. The reason for that was, if you made improvements to your house in Arlington, finished off the basement, put another bath on the first floor, second floor, the county didn't want to penalize you for improving your property. So they had, they didn't automatically whack your building assessment up. But the important thing about the assessment is, what is the ratio between the land and building? Once the ratio starts getting up over 50% of the total, then you're looking at possibly a tear down. And that's a big clue for appraisers. And again, as I said, I use the rate, I look at the rate of climb or decline in the assessment to get kind of a sense of where that neighborhood is going, where it's been, and where it's going now. So that's very helpful. Zillow, it's okay. It's not quite throwing darts at the board, but it's not really, really accurate. And as I said, it's because it's depending on the government stuff. Government's used to the assessment office used to hire kids in the summertime, high school kids or college kids, to go out and measure the houses and walk around and maybe go inside if the homeowner would let them. That sort of thing. They don't do that anymore. They don't have the budget for that. Now the only way they know about anything that's happened inside the house is to get a permit. There are a lot of things you can do in a house without getting a permit. Redo the bathroom, redo the kitchen. And so the county doesn't know that. They have no way of knowing what the interior of the house has been approved or whether it hasn't been approved. How many times, Adam, have you looked at a house from a little old lady that's 80 years old and she hasn't replaced anything in that house in the last 15 or 20 years? The city assessment keeps going up because they assume that the homeowner has constantly repaired stuff and fixed stuff and modernized. High goes to the city or the county, never goes to the homeowner.
Yeah.
One thing, if you're a homeowner, you can challenge your assessment. I don't want to get too far into this. It's a whole other thing. I used to be on the Board of Equalization in Alexandria, which is incredibly, fun. That's just one of the most fun things you can do with your clothes on. I was listening to people complain about their assessments. But the homeowner, when you get your tax assessment bill in February, I guess, or March, look at it closely. If you disagree with it, there are 3 steps. You call the assessor up and say, I think it's too high. Would you come out and look at the house? And they'll do that. They have to do that. That's part of their job. And if you can point out why they're wrong, they'll lower your assessment. The second way, if they don't do that, if they say, well, no, we're not going to lower your assessment, then you can formally request an appearance before the Board of Equalization. You come in and you get 5 minutes, I think, to present your case as to why, use other, and you can get an appraiser to come with you as to why your house is overassessed. And, then there's this board is comprised of real estate professionals plus citizens. And you'd be surprised at how much relief, how many times people get relief for their assessments. Anyway, so there you are.
Good deal. And so when a seller's thinking about a price, pricing their home, they're looking at maybe what their neighbor's home sold for up the street. And what should they be keeping in mind, as they're, comparing that home to their own home and thinking, oh boy, my house has got to be worth as much or more. What are some of the factors that they need to take into consideration?
I'd say the main factor is, what was the motivation of the seller? You know, if you know the people, ask them why they sold. If you don't know the people, you're not going to know why they sold. The other thing, going back to assessments for a second, is in the city of Alexandria, if you look up your assessment, there's a button on that page that says, here are the sales we use to use for your assessment. And next to that, there's a button that says, here are the sales for 2021. You hit that button and you get sales in your neighborhood. Fairfax County has roughly the same thing. I think their button says sales in the neighborhood. Arlington does the same thing. So you can the homeowner can get a pretty good idea of what the actual market data in the neighborhood is. It's not word of mouth. You go to a cocktail party, say, well, Johnny, I understand you sold your house. Johnny does not really need to tell you exactly how much you got for the house, especially if you got hosed. He's not going to tell you. So cocktail party chatter is not the most reliable indication of value. But as I say, the assessment pages all do have pretty reliable data.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, I can imagine there's an incentive to kind of pump up how much you got for the sale, when you're, ego thing. Now, so when a homeowner's looking to sell, they're maybe interviewing a couple of agents, and the topic of pricing comes up. What are the most important questions that they should be asking agents as they're interviewing them and deciding whether this agent or that agent is a good fit to list their home?
I would think that familiarity with the neighborhood is probably the number one thing. There are a lot of agents that farm specific neighborhoods. They would be, you drive around and you see their signs everywhere. They're going to be the ones that are most familiar. Amazingly, as an appraiser, when I look at a house, I'll pull up 10 comparable sales. I only need 3, but I'll usually pull between 8 and 10 comparable sales. And invariably, for a house, say in Fairfax County, say down the Parkway, the lowest sale is from an agent from Ashburn or Stafford County, because it's the cousin or the brother-in-law, or somebody knew somebody. So familiarity with the neighborhood is the number one thing. The other thing I would say, not to hurt anybody's feelings, is the one thing that I think the most important characteristic for real estate salesmen is the ability to accurately price a property. And that's probably one of the few, not very many agents can do that. Being a salesperson is a great, no question about that. But being able to arrive at a value and be able to support that to the homeowner, and again, let me just digress just a second. One of the things my lovely trophy wife now does is that she prepares a letter for the appraiser, and she looks at all the comps. She talks to the agents that sold the comps, finds out why this house sold for more than the other house, why it sold for less. Well, they didn't finish they started doing the rec room and they didn't finish it. Or, whatever, there's a wet spot in the vacuum. She gets all that sort of local data together and hands that to the appraiser. So when he's looking at the comps, he can say, oh, well, yeah, that's why this sold well. Yeah, that's why this sold well. And I love that when an agent does that. Because I'm supposed to call all the agents up and badger them about that. And I do some, but, a lot of agents are busy. They don't have a lot of time to talk, or they forget. So, it's 3 months ago. Well, they can't remember why this house sold for more than that house. So anyway, to address your question, I think it's really important for an agent to be in tune with that particular neighborhood. And the more data that the agent can get about the competition, the active sales and as well as the sold sales, really, really helps the homeowner, who then can help the appraiser.
Good stuff, Mickey. Any final thoughts, parting words before we sign off here?
Well, again, I'd like to reiterate, after you've seen the appraisal, of course, one of the great things that our government does is they don't let the buyer or the seller see the appraisal. Have you noticed? I mean,
Yep.
Which is ridiculous to me. The guy, it's his house. It's his, $700,000 investment. He should be able to see the data upon which the appraiser based his opinion of value. But in our day and time, for me, they get to see mine because it's a divorce or it's an estate or whatever. So I'm always glad to answer questions about it. But I would, if you're the homeowner, I would say the big thing is, get a professional in there to give you an opinion of value. You've got a $700,000 investment. Spending $400 or $500 to get an opinion of value is nothing. You're going to spend that much having the carpet cleaned.
Sure.
More than that, having the carpet cleaned. Get an idea, and you don't have to share that with you. You can if you want. Just have that in the back of your mind. Hey, this guy says this is what this is worth, and here's the market data to support that. So then you know whether the agent knows what they're talking about.
Good point. Well, Mickey, it's been awesome having you on. I can't thank you enough for the time and all this great information. Everybody out there, if you need an appraisal done, call this guy. He is top notch. He's been doing
Call me till November 1st, please.
All right. Good stuff. Hey, thanks so much, Mickey. Really appreciate it. Take care, and we'll love to have you back on again. We got more stuff.
Sure.
If you'd be so kind to join us.
Oh, I haven't even scratched the surface of my opinions yet. So anyway, thank you very much, Adam, for letting me do this. This is really, I think, a public service for the homeowners and for agents and for appraisers.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.